All right, this is an example of the CSS HobbyWebPage assignment or project. And I'm going to just take a student's web page, an example, and create some divs and do this assignment so that you can see how it's done, minus the first part of the CSS. That you should be able to do, but let me just show you the code. This first part, all the CSS was taken out of inline with the tags and placed as internal CSS. So the body tag had a background color here, and I just placed it up here. The heading 1s and headings 2 had the same color and font family. Paragraphs had the same color and font family, so all the paragraphs get that. And there's an ordered list. So after you get the CSS taken care of and up here in the style tags like this, I'm going to start there and add some dividers on the page. For the assignment, you need at least 3 dividers. And so that's what we're going to do. Maybe a 4th one, possibly. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to take a look at my page and start to just think of where I could divide things up. So the title is here. The heading 1 is right there, and I'll probably put that as the header divider all the way across the page at the top. And then I'll start the body divider, the main part of the page here, and I'll have this paragraph, this picture, this paragraph, and this picture at least in that body tag. Here's a list with some pictures in it. I'll have that on a sidebar over on the right. And then this information, I'll either put it on that sidebar or below all the divs, maybe in a footer div, or maybe even inside, put this information inside the body div. I'll decide that later. So first of all, this heading 1 is going to be inside the first div, which is a header div. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to recognize it or find it here, H1, right there. Now it's not the title. The title up here is actually on the browser right there. So whatever I put in the title goes there. It just happens to be the same text. So be aware of that. All right, so here I'm going to press enter and place a div, opening div, and I know all the divs are going to be different style, sizes, and all that. So I'm just going to put a class right away. Class equals, I'm going to call it div with an underscore header. And it could be div1, it could be anything you want, really, as the class name. I'm going to go down, and all I want in this div is the header. So I'm going to go just below the header and do a closing div tag before I forget. Okay, so that's it. And then I'll nest this tag right there since it's inside the div tags. That's my first div. Now it's not going to be any different right now because I haven't put any attributes to that div tag. So I'm going to come up here to the CSS and do that now. And it's a class with the class name div header. So I'm going to type dot div underscore header and do an open curly bracket, press enter, tab, just to kind of nest my elements here in CSS. And the first property I want is, I'm going to put the width. Doesn't matter the order of these, but I'm going to put 100% width, so make sure it goes all the way across the page. Semicolon, press enter. And the height, I'm going to make this maybe about 200 pixels. And usually heights and widths are trial and error as far as pixel goes. So I'll see what it looks like and then I'll adjust later. I'll put a closing bracket. There's some other things I'll probably put in that, but we'll wait for just a minute. So I've got that first divider. It's just got the header in it, and I've got a width and a height. I'm going to save that, Control S, or this button right there. I'm going to go over here and refresh. Now it doesn't look any different except that it bumped things down because the divider is 200 pixels tall. And that might be a little bit tall. I'll probably adjust that. Now, so that I can see the dividers, whenever I'm putting dividers in for the first time, I always put a border. So I'm going to type border, 1 pixel, solid, black. And that way, that's just for reference, so I can see where my dividers are, because it's hard to tell exactly where they are if you don't have a border on them. And eventually I'll take that border away. So I'll save it and come back and refresh. and it's pretty tall. I'm going to go maybe 150 at the most. Save it, refresh. Yeah, maybe 125. So it's just a little bit of trial and error there. Yep, that's okay. And if I want the rock climbing right in the middle, vertically and horizontally actually, I'll just do a text align for the horizontal center, and then the vertical center I'm going to add some padding to the top. So, you know what? Well, yeah, I'll do that right now. So I usually put padding below width and height, just personal preference. I'm going to put about 20 pixels of padding, and again, trial and error. And what was the other thing? Oh, center it horizontally. So I'm going to do text align center. And of course, it doesn't have to be centered. It's just your preference. Save it. Go back and refresh. Looks like the padding wasn't quite enough. However, it still looks a little tall to me. I'm just going to go 100 pixels tall. Let's see if that works. Okay, so that looks about right. So it's just kind of trial and error until I get it right. I had 100 pixels tall, 20 in, actually the padding I just want on the top. Otherwise it goes left, right, bottom. That's probably why it looked a little taller than I thought. If I just put the padding on the top, it bumps that header down. So I'll save that and go back and refresh. There we go, that looks pretty good. All right, for my second divider, I'm going to put this information down to the picture. So I'm going to, starting with this heading 2, I'm going to put another divider, and I'm going to name it class equals div underscore body, because it's the body of the web page. And then of course I'm going to go down, find that picture. So I've got one paragraph, one picture, another paragraph, another picture. Right below that, I'm going to end the divider. Closing div. And everything's inside of that tag, that opening and closing tag. So I'm going to select all of this and press tab to nest them so that I can see my dividers easily. Div 1, div 2. All right, now I'm going to add some style to it. So dot div body, opening curly bracket, and the width of this one, I don't want this one to go across the whole page, so I'm going to go about, let's say about 70%, I'm guessing. Then I've got 30% on the other side for the sidebar div. The height, let's just guess all that information. I don't know, it's going to be about 1,000 pixels, let's say. And so I can see it, I'm going to put a border again. Border 1 pixel, solid black. Closing bracket. Now I could also just copy and paste. I should have done that. I'll do that next time probably. But usually I copy and paste and then just delete what I don't want out of there. Then I didn't have to type the whole thing. However, I just did it, so we'll use it. And it looks like the 1,000 pixels actually worked out pretty well. We'll see if it holds up. Okay, the next divider, I want this information starting with the list. Well, basically just the list. I want it to be over here on the right side. Looks like we have plenty of space there. I'll probably close that gap a little bit more. I want that div to come over here. So first let's place a div. Put it in a div, and then we will, oh, here we go. I'm going to put a div around that list. And actually it starts with a header. So I'm going to include the header in it. Put a div, my third one, we'll name it class div sidebar. Now we can have sidebar on the left side or sidebars on the right side. I'm going to do right, so sidebar right. Now I'm putting underscores because you can't have spaces in class names. In other places in HTML you can. It's actually best if you don't, but it lets you. So, but in class names we cannot have a space. So you either have to put a dash or an underscore or just place everything right up next to each other, no spaces. Okay, div starts there. It ends before that link, just after the list. So I'm going to end it there and nest everything inside of it. Okay, and it's div sidebar right. So I'm going to add some style to it. I'm just going to copy this one and paste it there. Of course, rename it sidebar right. It's sitting there. It comes up when I start typing it, so I'm just going to press enter, and it places it there because it recognized that I just typed it down below. Now width, 70%. I can't have that because I want to line it up next to the other 70% div. So I'm going to put 30% at the most. However, with padding and all that, it's going to take it down a little bit. So I'm just going to start at 25% to see how that looks. In fact, this was a little bit small. Let's do 75% here, and let's say 23% here. Height, same as the previous, and I want the border to see where it's at. So let's try that. Save it, go back and refresh. Now it didn't fit, so must be some padding or something that I didn't see. Maybe, oh, well, just that border, but that shouldn't be that much. Oh, I know what it is. So it's not fitting in there. It should fit in there, but the reason it's down here is because I have not floated this left, this first div, and it still just thinks I want to take up the whole area, the whole left to right, the whole width of it. Now the float floats it left, or anywhere you want to float it, but floats it left typically, and then it says, oh, there's blank area here, and if something fits it, we'll bump it up into there. So I'm going to go back and float left. This is the div body. Float that one left, and I'm just going to do the same on the sidebar. And I could do right on the sidebar because it is on the right side, but then if I widen my browser really wide, there will be a bigger gap, and well, I don't know, just personal preference. So I'm going to float both of them left. I'm going to go back and refresh, and then it bumps up and in there. Now, sometimes funny things happen with the divs, and that's why I put the borders, because now I can see that there's something outside that border, and it's just an A. It's a part of a link. It's part of this link down here, actually. And just weird things like that happen. So I'm glad it did so I can show this. But if something weird happens, it's easier to see that I have my divs here, and this is outside the div. Otherwise, let me show, I'm just going to take off this border. I'm just going to put a 0 here and a 0 there on both the body and the sidebar. And now, if I didn't know where the div was, I would assume this was probably in the div, and I would have no idea why it's in the div, because in the code it's outside of it. But it's a little better with the borders to tell what's going on. So I'm going to put that border back. I realize that it's outside of the divider, and it's probably because now I can see also that this divider is not going all the way out to the end of the page, and so there's a little bit of room for one letter of that link, and it bumped it up into there, it slid it up into there. So I need to just extend this a little bit, but I'm going to do that with padding because I don't want this right up next to the edge of the browser. So I'm going to put some padding on that on the left side. So in the body tag, doesn't really matter where, I just put it in there somewhere. Padding, now I can put padding all the way around of maybe 15 pixels, or I can do padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom by doing this. So I could do that. However, there's another way to do it, which is to put all the pixels in there at the same time, and it starts with the top. So on the top, I don't want any padding. I'm going to say 0 space. On the right side, I'm going to put probably 15 pixels space. Then it goes down to the bottom. The bottom, I'm going to have 0 pixels. And on the left, it goes back to the left side. That's last. And I'm going to put 15 pixels on the left, maybe 20. We'll see what it looks like. So that's just a different way of doing it. I've got a top amount of pixels, I've got the right, I've got the bottom, and I've got the left. So I'll save that, come back here, refresh, and it didn't bump the top down because there's a little bit of a gap there already, and it spaced that out by 15 pixels. There's a little bit of space in between this div and this one, but this one I'm going to put some padding in as well. But look, it got rid of the A because now the div, the sidebar div, is almost all the way to the edge. And I have to be careful with this padding, because if I put padding here, it's going to bump it down again. So I will actually take this down to 22 to give it a little more space. Then I'm going to add some padding here. And I'm just going to do padding left on this one of 15, maybe 10 pixels on this one. And it's all just kind of trial and error, and you see what looks good, and if it doesn't look good, you change it. Oh, looks like I need a little more padding because that A came back. So I could either change the percentage back to 23, but I'm going to change the pixels to 15 on padding. There we go, got rid of it. All right, so that's pretty good. It's not all the way to the edge, but that's okay. It's close enough. Nothing's coming up there. Okay, a couple more things. Let's stick this somewhere. I can either put the links over here on the sidebar, which might be nice, or I could leave them where they are, or I could stick them right in here. I could put a div in there and float this picture left. That might be kind of nice. So lots of things I could do. Probably for this example, I'm just going to leave it right here. Once I take that border off, it'll look like it just kind of continues there. And maybe take 50 pixels off of here so it's not down there so far. Either way, I think that might be good. Oh, let me do something with this top div also. So I'm going to go back, and I like to have a colored border around the top div just to kind of separate it a little bit more, but it's your preference. So the heading, let's see, the header div, I'm going to put a background color on it. Background color. And I want that to be the same dark color as I'm actually going to swap these two. So that the header 1 color right there. So I'm just going to copy and paste that to the background. And then, of course, the header is going to disappear because they're both the same color. So I'm going to change that color back to this color, switch it to this light color. So that is in the body background right there. So just going to get this name of the color, or the hexadecimal for it. And the heading 1, now the heading 1 and heading 2s were all the same color. So I don't want to change the header 2s to that light color because then they'll disappear. So I have to separate that out now, which is not a real big deal. I just have the header 2 on its own and then make another bracket and set of style for the header 1. And I'm just going to put a color, color for the text, but then I also need that font family back. So I'm going to copy that into the header 1. And that way, my header 1 will go light, and the background will be dark. So there we go. And now, if I take off all the borders, let me do that. So go back. There's 3 borders that I put as 1 pixel. I'm going to put them to 0 to hide them. And look, the A came back because I took a few pixels off because of the borders. So fun stuff. Let me put this back to 23%. And that's too big because it sent it down here. So fantastic. I could put a 22.5, but I'm just going to put it back to 22. And then let's see. Let's take off a few pixels on the right side of the body. So this one's the right. I'm just going to do 10 pixels there. There it is, but the A is back because I put the exact same amount of pixels. That was real smart. 12 pixels. Nope. 13 pixels. We're splitting hairs here. Oh, wow. 14. I can't go back to 15 because that was too much. So I hope that one works. Wait a second. That's because my percentage. Okay, I get it. All right. There we go. It's gone. Okay, done. So I've got my divider here, and I've got this divider over here, and I've got the one on top. You can't really tell. It just looks like a nice web page. So that's how we put the 3 dividers in, and that looks great for the grade. I've got padding in there to bring this title down. I've got it to get it away from the edge of the browser a little bit and to make it fit. And there you have it.